Do-do-do-do. Hello, hello. Getting everything set up for you. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Hello. All right. We're going to be reading Jane Austen this month. Pride and Prejudice is what we're going to be reading. Yes. No worries. No worries, Stephen. We're reading Pride and Prejudice this month. I'll pin some of my books here. So check out Angel of Solitude. Wonderful book. I really enjoyed this book. That was one of our authors of. It was in March we had this author up here. Psychological drama fantasy about second chances. I really enjoyed this book. I really suggest it. Let me get some more stuff set up here before I get started later. Before we get started here. Do-do-do-do. Hello, everybody. We're going to read Pride and Prejudice. Everybody's having a great Monday. All right. We read this in March. It was a great book. I do recommend it. It is a blend of psychological drama and fantasy. It's one man's journey through time. He gets to talk to his younger self, and he's able to try to help himself for a second chance. Very unique story. Has a lot of references to AOL and stuff that you would have grown up in. I do recommend this book. Check it out. And then, this is what we read last month. How I Magically Messed Up My Life in 4 freaking days. The Tale of Bryan Adams. He has a lot of money, just like another famous wizard. He blew up his dad's penthouse. There was this vampire guy that he was doing magical battles with. This is a very interesting story about a magical cell phone. He sets his mom's theater on fire. He has the crush, and they all want to get rid of this cell phone, but they don't want the evil guy to get it back. It's been a pretty exciting read. I'm actually going to continue this on Friday. But today we're going to do classic literature, and we're going to be reading Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Jane Austen novels were circumscribed as her life. Wit and kind observation made her the equal of the greatest novelist in the language. Born the 7th child of Hampshire on December 16th, 1775, so 1 year before the American Revolution, she was educated mainly at home. At an early age, she began writing sketches and satires of popular novels for her family's entertainment. As a clergyman's daughter from a well-connected family, she had an ample opportunity to study the habits of the middle class, the gentry, and the aristocracy. At 21, she began the novel called First Impression, an early version of Pride and Prejudice. In 1801, her father's retirement, the family moved to the fashionable resort of Bath. 2 years later, she sold a first version but the first of her novels to appear in print was Sense and Sensibility. We might get to Sense and Sensibility, but I'm going to start with this one. Pride and Prejudice, 1813, and then Emma, 1816. After her father's unalive in 1805, the family moved first to Southampton, then to the cottage in Hampshire. Retired Jane Austen was still in touch with a wide variety of people, mainly through her brothers. One had become a rich country gentleman, another a London banker, and two were naval officers. Though her novels were published anonymously, she had many early and devoted readers, among them the Prince Regent and Sir Walter Scott. In 1816, declining health, Austen wrote Persuasions. In 1817, she was buried in Winchester Cathedral. So, Jane Austen, one of the very first popular female authors of her time. Very nice to read. I haven't actually read Pride and Prejudice, so this will be a first for me. So, this is Professor Fox's Cozy Corner, and we're going to begin the classic Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. It is truth, universally acknowledged, that a single man in possession of good fortune must be in want of a wife. However little known the feelings of views of such a man may be on his first entertaining a neighborhood, this truth is so well fixed in the minds of the surrounding families that he is considered as the rightful property of some one or other of their daughters. "My dear Mr. Bennet," said his lady to him one day, "have you heard that Netherfield Park is let at last?" Mr. Bennet replied that he had not. "But it is," returned she, "for Miss Long has just been here, and she told me all about it." Mr. Bennet made no answer. "Do not you want to know who has taken it?" cried his wife impatiently. "You want to tell me, and I have no objections to hear it. This was an invitation enough." "Why, my dear, you must know. Miss Long says that Netherfield is taken by a young man of large fortune from the north of England, that he came down on Monday and 4 to see the place, and was so much delighted with it that he agreed with Mr. Morris immediately that he is to take possession before, and some of the servants are to be in the house by the end of the next week. What is his name?" "Bingley." "Is he married or single?" "Oh, single, my dear, to be sure. A single man of large fortune, 4,000 or 5,000 a year. What a fine thing for our girls." "Yes." "How so? How can it affect them?" "My dear Mr. Bennet," replied his wife, "how can you be so tiresome? You must know that I am thinking of his marrying one of them. Is that his design in settling here?" "Design? Nonsense! How can you talk so? But it is very likely that he may fall in love with one of them, and therefore you must visit him as soon as it comes." "I see no occasion for that. You and your girls may go, and you may send them by themselves, which perhaps will be still better, for as long as you are as handsome as any of them, Mr. Bingley might like the best of the party." "My dear, you flatter me. I certainly have had my share of beauty, but I do not pretend to be anything extraordinary now. When a woman has 5 grown-up daughters, she ought to give over thinking of her beauty. In such case, a woman has not often much beauty to think of. But, my dear, you must indeed go and see Mr. Bingley when he comes into the neighborhood. It is more than engaged for you, I assure you. But consider your daughters. Only think what an establishment it would be for one of them. Sir William and Lady Lucas are determined to go, merely on the account. For in general, you know they visit no newcomers. Indeed, you must go, for it will be impossible for us to visit him if you do not. You are very scrupulous, surely. I dare say Mr. Bingley will be very glad to see you, and I will send a few lines by you to assure him of my hearty consent to his marrying whichever he chooses of the girls, though I must throw in good word for my little Lizzie. I desire you will do no such thing. Lizzie is not a bit better than the others, and I am sure she is not half so handsome as Jane, nor half so good-humored as Lydian. But you are always giving her the preference. They have none of them much to recommend them, replied he. They are all silly and arrogant like other girls, but Lizzie is something more of a quickness than her sister. Mr. Bennet, how can you abuse your own children in such a way? You take delight in vexing me. You have no comparison on my poor nerves. You mistake me for my dear. I have a high respect for your nerves. They are my old friends. I have heard you mention them with consideration these 20 years at least. Ah, you do know what I suffer. But I hope you will get over it, and I live to see many young men of 4,000 a year come into the neighborhood. It will be no use for us if 20 such should come, since you will not visit them. Depend upon it, my dear, that if there are 20, I will visit them all. Mr. Bennet was so odd a mixture of quick parts, sarcastic humor, reserve, and caprice, that the experience of 23 years had been insufficient to make his wife understand his character. Her mind was less difficult to develop. She was a woman of mean understanding, little information, and uncertain temper. When she was disconnected, she fancied herself nervous. The business of her life was to get her daughters married. Her solace was visiting and news. All right. That is chapter 1 of Pride and Prejudice. Has anyone else read Pride and Prejudice? Jane Austen's book. I think they made a movie, kind of like a satire movie of it, of one with zombies in it, I believe, a while back. But yeah, Jane Austen's an important author, English author, very important in our days. So if you're reading classic literature, she should be one that should be on your list to read. In case you're interested, I call it my little fireplace over here. It's a sulking 2-in-1 air purifier. Check it out. I like it. It makes it look like I have a little cozy thing with a fireplace there. This is my favorite blanket to get all cozy with. It's a bed sheer flannel blanket. One of the best blankets I've seen on TikTok. I really enjoy it. I use this blanket all the time when I'm reading and trying to stay comfortable. And on sale today, you can get How I Magically Messed Up My Life in 4 freaking days. We are going to be reading this on Fridays. This is Megan O'Russell's book about a young man who finds a cell phone that he thinks is evil because he got it from like a guy he calls him Vampire Dude. And it has this app that can pretty much do everything. So you should check this book out. We're going to be reading this. A lot of interesting things have happened. We caught his mom's theater on fire. It's been pretty exciting. The Vampire Dude is trying to reclaim his phone. And Bryant is going to try to stop him. I don't know if Bryant's going to decide to keep the phone or try to destroy it. But pretty exciting there. And then the last book I would like to recommend to you is Mr. Chris's book. Mr. Chris read the Christmas Carol with us. This book is Angel of Solitude Echoes. And this is a book about Adam Gray, who spent his life running from troubled past. He's an educator, and he's in a fatal car crash of his, and he's on life support, and he goes into this place called Solitude where he meets his guardian angel. His guardian angel gives him an opportunity to have a second chance at life, and he is able to talk to his younger self and try to get through abuse when he was a younger man. Very unique story, blend of psychological drama and fantasy. So check that out. I'm going to grab some tea over here. All right. We are going to continue Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Here we go. Mr. Bennet was among the earliest of those who waited on Mr. Bingley. He had always intended to visit him, though to the last always assuring his wife that he should not go. Until the evening after the visit was paid, she had no knowledge of it. It was then disclosed in the following manner. Observing his second daughter employed in trimming a hat, he suddenly addressed her with, "I hope Mr. Bingley will like it, Lizzie." "We are not in a way to know what Mr. Bingley likes," said her mother resentfully, "since we are not to visit." "But you forget, mamma," said Elizabeth, "there we shall meet him at the assemblies, and that Mr. Long has promised to introduce him." "I do not believe Miss Long would do any such thing. She has 2 nieces of her own, and she is selfish, hypocritical woman, and I have no opinion of her." "No more have I," said Mr. Bennet, "and I am glad to find that you do not depend on her serving you." Mrs. Bennet denied not to make any reply, but unable to contain herself, began scolding one of the daughters. "Don't keep coughing so, Kitty. For heaven's sake, have a little compassion on my nerves. You tear them to pieces." Kitty had no discretion in her coughs, said her father. "She times them ill." "I do not cough for any amusement," replied Kitty. "When is your next ball to be, Lizzie?" "Tomorrow fortnight." "Ah, so it is," cried her mother. "And Miss Long does not come back till the day before, so it will be impossible for her to introduce him, for she will not know him herself." "Then, my dear, you may have the advantage of your friend and introduce Mr. Bingley to her." "Impossible, Mr. Bennet, impossible, when I am not acquainted with him myself." "How can you be so teasing? I honor your circumstance. A fortnight's acquaintance is certainly very little. One cannot know what a man really is by the end of a fortnight. But if we do not venture, somebody else will. And after all, Miss Long and her nieces must stand this if you decline the office. I will take it on myself." The girls stared at their father. Miss Bennet said only, "Nonsense! Nonsense! What can be the meaning of the diplomatic exclamation?" cried he. "Do you consider the forms of introduction and the stress that is laid on them as nonsense? I cannot quite agree with you there. What say you, Mary? For you are a young lady of deep reflection, I know, and read great books and make extracts." Mary wished to say something very sensible, but knew not how. While Mary is adjusting her idea, we continue. Let us return to Mr. Bingley. "I am sick of Mr. Bingley," cried his wife. "I am sorry to hear that, but why did you not tell me so before? If I had known as much this morning, I certainly would not have called on him. It is very unlikely, but as I have actually paid the visit, we cannot escape the acquaintance now." The astonishment of the ladies was just what he wished, that of Miss Bennet, perhaps surpassing the rest, though when the first tumult of joy was over, she began to declare that it was what she had expected all the while. "How good it is for you, my dear Mr. Bennet! But I knew I should persuade you at last. I was sure you loved your girls too well to neglect such an acquaintance." "Well, how pleased I am. And it is such a good joke, too, that you should have gone this morning and never said a word about it till now." Now, Kitty, you may cough as much as you choose," said Mr. Bennet, and as we spoke, he left the room, fatigued with raptures of his wife. "What an excellent father you have, girls," said she, when the door was shut. "I do not know how you will ever make him amends for his kindness for me either. For that matter, at our time of life it is not so pleasant, I can tell you, to be making new acquaintance every day. But for your sakes he would do anything. Lydia, my love, have you are the youngest. I dare say Mr. Bingley will dance with you at the next ball." "Oh," said Lydia stoutly, "I am not afraid, for though I am the youngest, I'm the tallest." The rest of the evening was spent conjecturing how soon he would return Mr. Bennet's visit, and determining when they should ask him to dinner. All right. Yes, I just started. We are on chapter 3 of Pride and Prejudice, so pretty much just started. Mr. Bingley has been introduced. We've been introduced to the daughters. We've been introduced to Mr. Bennet. And we know that Mr. Bingley has tons of money. That is what we know so far of Pride and Prejudice. All right. Continuing on. We'll read to chapter 4 and take a commercial break. Not all that Miss Bennet, however, with the assistance of her $5, could ask on the subject was a sniffing to draw from her husband any satisfaction description of Mr. Bingley. They attacked him in various ways with braceful questions, ingenious suppositions, and distant surmises, but he eluded the skill of them all, and they were at last obliged to accept the second-hand intelligence of their neighborhood Lady Lucas. Her report was highly favorable. Sir William had been delighted with him. He was quite young, wonderful, handsome, extremely agreeable, and to the crown the whole he meant to be the next assembly with a large party. Nothing could be more delightful. To be fond of dancing was a certain step towards falling in love, and very lively hopes of Mr. Bingley's heart were entertained. "If I can see one of my daughters happily settled in Netherfield," said Miss Bennet to her husband, "and all the others equal well married, I shall have nothing to wish for." In a few days Mr. Bingley returned Mr. Bennet's visit, and sat about 10 minutes with him in his library. He had entertained hopes of being admitted to a sight of the young ladies. Of those beauty he had heard much, but he saw only the father. The ladies were somewhat more fortunate, for they had the advantage of ascertaining from an upper window that he wore a blue cloak and rode a black horse. An invitation to dinner was soon afterwards dispatched, and already had Miss Bennet planned the course that were to do credit to her housekeeping when the answer arrived which deferred it all. Mr. Bingley was obliged to be in town the following day, and consequently unable to accept the honor of their invitation. Miss Bennet was quite disconcerted. She could not imagine what business he could have in town so soon as his arrival, and she began to fear that he might be always flying about from one place to another, and never settle at Netherfield as he ought to be. Lady Lucas quieted her fears a little by starting the idea of his being gone to London, only to get a little large party for the ball, and the report soon followed that Mr. Bingley was to be 12 ladies and 7 gentlemen with him to assembly. The girls grieved over such a number of ladies, but were confronted the day before the ball by hearing that, instead of 12, he had brought only 6 with him from London, his 5 sisters and a cousin, and when the party entered the assembly room, he consisted of only 5 altogether. Mr. Bingley has 2 sisters, the husband of the oldest and another younger man. Mr. Bingley was good-looking and gentlemanlike. He had a pleasant countenance and easy, unaffected manners. His sisters were fine women, with an air of decided fashion. His brother-in-law, Mr. Hurst, merely looked a gentleman, but his friend, Mr. Darcy, soon drew the attention of the room by his fine, tall person, handsome features, noble, and the report for which was in general circulation with him 5 minutes after his entrance of having 10,000 a year. The gentlemen pronounced him to be a fine figure of a man. The ladies declared he was such a handsomer than Mr. Bingley, and he was looked at with great admiration for about half the evening, till his manners gave a disgust which turned the tide of his popularity, for he was covered to be proud to be above his company, and above being pleased, and not at all his large estate in Derbyshire could then save him from having a most foreboding, disagreeable countenance, and being unworthy to compare with his friend. Mr. Bingley had soon made himself acquainted with all the principal people in the room, and he was lively, unreserved, danced every dance, and was angry that the ball closed so early, and talked of giving one himself at Netherfield. Such admirable qualities must speak for themselves. What a contrast between him and his friend! Mr. Darcy danced only once with Miss Hurst, and once with Miss Bingley, declined being introduced to any other lady, and spent the rest of the evening in walking about the room, speaking occasionally to one of his own party. His character was decided. He was prudish, most disagreeable. Men in the world and everybody hoped that he would never come there again. Amongst the most violent against him was Mr. Bennet, whose dislike of his general behavior was sharpened into particular resentment by his having slighted one of her daughters. Elizabeth Bennet had been obliged by the secrecy of gentlemen to sit down for 2 dances, and during part of the time Mr. Darcy had been standing near enough for her to overhear a conversation between him and Mr. Bingley, who came from the dance for a few minutes to press his friend to join it. "Come, Darcy," said he, "I must have you dance. I dislike to see you standing about by yourself in this stupid manner. You had much better dance." "I certainly shall not, you know how I distaste it, unless I am particularly acquainted with my partner. At such an assembly as this, it would be unsupportable. Your sisters are engaged, and there is not another woman in the room who I would not be a punishment to me to stand up with. I would not be a facetious as you are," cried Bingley, "for a kingdom, upon my honor. I may never met with so many pleasant girls in my life as I have this evening, and there are several of them you see uncommonly pretty." "You are dancing with the only handsome girl in your room," said Mr. Darcy, looking at the eldest Miss Bennet. "Oh, and she is the most beautiful creature I have ever beheld. But there is one of her sisters sitting down just behind you, who is very pretty, and I dare say very agreeable. Do let me ask my partner to introduce you." "Which do you mean?" Turned around, and he looked for a moment at Elizabeth, till, catching her eye, he withdrew his own and coldly said, "She is tolerable, but not handsome enough to tempt me, and I am no humour at present to give consequence to young ladies who are slighted by other men. You had better return to your partner and enjoy her smiles, for you are wasting your time with me." Mr. Bingley followed his advice. Mr. Darcy walked off, and Elizabeth remained with no very cordial feeling towards him. She told the story, however, with great spirit among her friends, for she had lively, playful disposition, which delighted her anything ridiculous. The meaning altogether passed off pleasantly to the whole family. Miss Bennet had seen her eldest daughter, most admired by the Netherfield party. Mr. Bingley had danced with her twice, and she had a distinguished by her sisters. Jane was as much gratified by this as her mother could be, though in a quieter way Elizabeth felt Jane's pleasure. Mary had heard himself mentioned to Miss Bingley as the most accomplished girl in the neighbourhood. And Catherine and Lydia had been fortunate enough to be never without partners, which was all that they had yet learnt to care for the ball. They returned, therefore, in good spirits to Longbourn, the village where they lived, in which they were the principal inhabitants. They found Mr. Bennet still up. With a book he was regardless of time, and on the present occasion he had a good deal of curiosity as to the event of the evening which had raised such splendid expectations. He had rather hoped that all his wife's views on the stranger would be a disappointment, but he soon found that he had a very different story to hear. "Oh, my dear Mr. Bennet, as she entered the room, we have had a most delightful evening at most excellent ball. I wish you had been there. Jane was so admired. Nothing could be like it. Everybody said how well she looked. And Mr. Bingley thought her quite beautiful and danced with her twice. Only think of that, my dear. He actually danced with her twice. And she was the only creature in the room that he asked a second time. First of all, he asked Miss Lucas. I was so vexed to see him stand up with her, but however, he did not admire her at all. Indeed, nobody can. You know, and he seemed quite struck with Jane as she was going down the dance. So Anne inquired who she was, and got introduced, and asked her for the 2 next. Then the 2 third, and he danced with Miss King, and then 2 fourth with Maria Lucas, and the 2 fifth with Jane again, and the 2 sixth with Lizzie. And if he had any compassion for me, cried her husband impatiently, he would not have danced half so much. For God's sake, say no more of his partners. Oh, that he had sprained his ankle for the first dance. Oh, my dear, continued Mr. Bennet, I am quite delighted with him. He is so exceptionally handsome, and his sisters are charming women. I have never in my life saw anything more elegant than her dress. I dare say the lace up upon Mr. Hurst's gown. here she was interpreted again. Mr. Bennet protested against my description of finery. She was therefore obliged to seek another branch of the subject, and related with much brightness of spirit and some extravagance the shocking rudeness of Mr. Darcy. But I can assure you, said Added, that Lizzie does not lose much by not suiting his fancy, for he is a most disagreeable, horrid man, not at all worth pleasing, so high and so conceited that there is no enduring him. He walked here and walked there, fancying himself so very great, not handsome enough to dance with. I wish that you had been there, my dear, to have given him one of your set-downs. I quite doest the man. All right. Chapter 4. We're on to chapter 4. Chapter 4 is where we're at. I want to find... I'll find a book break later. Alrighty. Let's put here up. So if you're interested in my little fireplace, I call it my little fireplace, but the Salking 2-in-1 air purifier makes things smell very nice. I like it. Gives me another little sense of a little fireplace. Angels of Solitude is a book that I do recommend. You should get this book, Mr. Chris's book here. This is about Adam Gray, who is an educator, and he's in a fatal car accident. And he goes to this place called Solitude, where his guardian angel is, and he must navigate his younger self through traumas to escape them. And he does it through all AOL Ancient Messenger. So it's pretty cool. And then we'll be continuing this book, How I Magically Messed Up My Life, in 4 freaking days. It's on sale now for $6, so you should get it now. It has been a really exciting book so far. I like this book. It has a lot of magical events. There's a lot of apps that happen. It's a really unique book. Megan O. Russell will be continuing this book on Friday if you're interested in this. But it's for $6 right now, so check that one out. Already talked about Angel Solitude. This is my most favorite blanket that I ever liked. It is very nice. Keeps me cozy. One of Professor Fox's favorite blanket. Check it out. Bed from Bedshear. Alright. Now we're going to continue Pride and Prejudice. We will continue Pride and Prejudice. Chapter 4 of Pride and Prejudice. If you're just joining me, this is Professor Fox's Cozy Corner, where we read classic literature, and on Fridays we read new authors, amateur authors on TikTok. We get their books and we read them here live. We're reading Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice right now. When Jane and Elizabeth were alone, the former, who had been cautious in her praise of Mr. Bingley, before expressed to her sister how much she admired him. "He is just what a young man ought to be," she said. "Sensible, good-humored, lively, and I never such happy manners, so much ease, with such perfect good breeding." "He is also handsome," replied Elizabeth, "which is a young man ought likewise to be, if he possibly can. His character is hereby complete. I was very much flattered by him asking me to dance a second time. I did not expect such a compliment." "Did you not, you?" "I did, for you. But there is one great difference between us. Compliments always take you by surprise, and me never. What could be more natural than his asking you again? He could not help seeing that you were about 5 times as pretty as every other woman in the room. No thanks to his gallantry for that. Well, he certainly is very agreeable, and I give you leave to like him. You have liked many a stupider person, dear Lizzie. Oh, you are a great deal too apt. You know to like people in general. You never see a fault in anybody. All the world are good and agreeable in your eyes. I never heard you speak ill of a human being in my life. I would wish not to be hasty in censuring anyone, but I always speak what I think. I know you do, and it is that which makes it a wonder. Were you in good sense to be as so honestly blind to the follies and nonsense of others? Affection of canter is common enough. One meets it everywhere, but to be candid without orchestration or design, to take the good of everybody's character and make it still better and say nothing of the bad, belongs to you alone. And so you like this man's sister too, do you? Their manners are not equal to his. Oh, thank you for stopping by. Thank you. We're reading Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. Elizabeth listened in silence, but was not convinced. Their behavior at the assembly had not been calculated to please in general, and with more quickness of observation and less piquancy of temper in their sister, and with a judgment too unassailed by any attention to herself. Thank you for the corn. She was very light disposed to approve them. They were in fact, very fine ladies, not decent in good humor when they were pleased, nor in the power of being agreeable where they chose it, but proud and conceited that they were rather handsome, and had been educated in one of the first private seminaries in town, and a fortune of £20,000 were in the habit of spending more than they ought, and of associating with people of rank. Were therefore in every respect entitled to think well of themselves and meanly of others. They were of respectable family in the north of England, a circumstance more deeply impressed on their memories than their brother's fortune and their own had been acquired by trade. Mr. Bingley inherited property to the amount of nearly £100,000 from his father, who had intended to purchase his estate, but did not live to do it. Mr. Bingley intended it likewise, and sometimes made choice of his own country, as he was now provided with a good house and the liberty of manner. He was doubtfully too many of those who best known the easiness of his temper, wherein he might not spend the remainder of his days in Netherfield, and leave the next generation to the purchase. Thank you for the follow. I appreciate you. His sisters were very anxious for his having an estate of his own, but through he was now established only as a tenant. Miss Bingley was by no means unwilling to preside at his table, nor was Miss Hurst, who had married a man of more fashion and fortune, less disposed to be considered his house as her own home when it suited her. Mr. Bingley had not been of any age 2 years, when he was tempted by an accidental recommendation to look at another house. And he did look at it, and into for half an hour was pleased with the situation in the principal rooms, and satisfied with the owner said with praise, and took it immediately. Between him and Darcy there was a very steady friendship, in spite of a great opposition of character. Bingley was endured Darcy by the earnest openness dutifully of his temper, though no disposition could offer a greater contrast to his own. And though with his own he never appeared dissatisfied on the strength of Darcy's regard. Bingley had the firmest resilience, and of his judgment the highest opinion and understanding. Darcy was the superior being. Bingley was by no means deficient, but Darcy was clever. He was at the same thing haughty, reserved, and fictitious, and his manners, though well-bred, were not inviting, and the respect of his friends had greatly the advantage. Bingley was sure of being liked wherever he appeared. Darcy was continually giving offence. The manner in which they spoke of the Meryton assembly was a significant characteristic. Bingley had never met with the pleasanter people or prettier girls in his life. Everybody had been most kind and attentive to him, and then had been no formality, no stiffness. He had soon felt acquainted with all the room. And as to this Miss Bennet, he could not conceive an angel more beautiful. Darcy, on the contrary, had seen a collection of people in whom there was little beauty and no fashion. For none of them he had felt the smallest intention, and from none received either attention or pleasure. Miss Bennet he acknowledged to be pretty, but she smiled too much. Miss Hurst and her sister allowed it to be so, but still they admired her, and liked her, and pronounced her to be sweet girl, and one of whom they should not object to know more of Miss Bennet, and therefore established a sweet girl, and their brother felt authorized by such commendation to think of her as he chose. All right. We're on chapter 5 of Pride and Prejudice. Yes. And we are going to stop it there, and I will be on next time. Thanks for stopping by. This is Professor Fox signing off.